Alrighty, welcome to the start of a new anime review series. Now you're probably thinking, Nick, it's been a while since you did one. Is this basically a new, let's say, new anime based upon a manga or light novel you read that you're just basically around now watching? Not necessarily, no. This is the start of my review for Shaman King 2021. Yep. Now, you probably ask yourself, Nick, isn't this show on Netflix and hasn't not been released yet? I go to the same website I watched 7 days since. And I'm going to do the same thing for Eden Zero because I don't feel like waiting 6 damn months for the show to come out. Now, I have heard this show has been confirmed for 52 episodes. Hopefully, we get a second season out of this. Now, I technically haven't done a review of this series before. The original anime that came out back in 2001. Yes. Now, I originally reviewed this series, like the original, like watched on bench watching the whole thing. Let's see. That was back in 2018. Yes, February 2018 when I did a review of this series. Yep, 2018. We probably like 2018. That's something. Yep. Now, like the original anime, it's based on the manga by Hishori Teki, who's a friend of Oda's. Now, this series is made by Bridge. That's the name of the studio that makes it. The original one who made it was Expert. Yes. Though, interesting thing with the animation, it looks very similar to the 2001 anime. Very similar. Which I'm like, really? Why in the world would be that similar? It's just that it is. Now, the thing starts off like, you probably think, okay, first episode, it probably starts off exactly where the original pilot episode left off from the original anime. No! It is not where it starts off. It starts off in a flashback. I'm not kidding about that. It's a freaking flashback. Yep. Now, the flashback is set back in 1985. Yes, 1985, which, that's interesting. Because this one has the birth of Yo and Hao. Basically, we see an old man who foresees sees Hao's like ascension to evil. So he wants to kill his own grandchild because he thinks that, oh no, if she gives birth to twins, that means that one of them might be evil, so kill them both. So he goes to see Kiko, who is the mother of the two characters, and there's one other one. I'm trying to think, what was his name here? You have Yomi, who is actually like, let's see if I can find him here. Yeah, Miso. Yeah, he has a few lines in the episode. Now, he's seen here without a mask because if you look him up online, he always he has a mask on. Well, that was something that happened during the ceremony because I think it was mentioned in the original series. This is the first time I actually see it. Where after she gives birth to her first child, good thing they didn't show the birth because that would have been disgusting. And for some reason, this baby's got a big head with a tiny body. I'm like, that's interesting. And it looks like his grandfather is about to kill him, and then all of a sudden his guardian spirit shows up. Yes, his guardian spirit. Because they're shamans. They kind of explain this in the episode. Oh, I forgot to mention before I continue. This episode adapted from the first 2 chapters in the manga and the final page of chapter 5. Yep. How they adapt this one is quite interesting. Is that they basically take the first 2 chapters and sort of in a way splice them into each other for some reason. Yes, I don't really know why in the world they do this for, but it's a good way basically to not have it where the first episode adapts the first chapter and the second episode adapts the second chapter. Yeah. They're not going to follow the same let's just say, streak as the original series did, which thank you for that. So, and of course, Yo goes away. Not Yo, it's How. Yes. Ho. Yeah. He goes away, and he's not seen again after this. Not in this episode, per se. He may come back later, but I don't think, basically, he's going to come back here. And then we jump to present day, 13 years later, aka 1988, where this is where the original anime started. Yes, this is at this point started. That whole opening sequence took up at least about 2 minutes of the anime, which is interesting to say the least. I don't know if that's from Shaman King Zero. That might be. I did get a chance to look it up. We start off with Menta. Yes, the short kid who basically is kind of in the way the narrator of the series. Though he doesn't narrate like he does much in the original series. No, he doesn't. Though I should point out, though, most of his scenes in this episode are pretty much intact from the manga, even the original series. They make some slight visual changes here. Like when he talks to people. They do make a slight change here. Is that there are three people. There's a chubby guy, a beautiful woman, well, these are teenagers, and another guy. Now, in the manga, and I think maybe in the original anime, this guy was sitting down. In the anime, he was standing up, leaning against the desk. And as for the other guy, they apparently had him look much more chubbier in this version than he did in the original one. Oh yeah, and apparently, despite the fact this is Japan, where everyone wears uniforms, apparently him and Yo can actually get away with having their shirts open. Before we get to this, you see him running late for cram school, just like in the original anime. And he basically is just now in the original. I think in the original one, this is actually during somewhat certain daytime. It became night. We go see Yo. In the anime, it's at nighttime, and he goes to the cemetery. He meets Yo. We see the samurai Asakusa in the background. By the way, the samurai in the original dub was voiced by Sean Schemmel, aka Goku. Yep, Goku voiced this guy in the original dub, in the 4Kids dub. Yep. And the original voice actor for Menta was Oliver Wayman. Yes, he was the original voice actor for Menta. As in the case of Yo, his original voice actor was Sebastian Arkiller, who actually was the one who was in the original series. So this is the Japanese sub. In this series, he is voiced by Yoko Hishida. Yes. And aside from this series, this is a woman. Yeah, this is also the same person. If you're familiar with some of these roles this woman is voiced, she was the English sub. She was the Japanese dub actress for Ray's Gimmer from High School DxD, and does Venture Kaisen, which I know it's a big anime. I haven't a chance to watch it yet. She voices Yotom Ori, which is interesting. And this is her newest work she's actually worked on. Is this very series. Not surprising, though, that the main character's voice a woman, because he kind of sounds like a woman in the way he dresses. You might think he's a woman. Oh, and in case you're curious, do they change any of the characters' looks at all? Not really. They look exactly the same as the original anime, which kudos for Bridge for doing that, because I kind of thought, though, new animator, we might change the style way the characters look. Not necessarily, no. If you watch this series compared to the original one, aside from how the way the colors look, it looks virtually the same. Which, that's surprising. Because, you ever heard of an anime reboot where it's almost spot on and make people think this is actually the original anime? The only difference is that what happens in the second half of the episode is not in the original episode. In the original pilot episode, they aired back in 2001. Excuse me. We see Menta, and of course, there's a bit more detail here. There's actually some cuts here from the actual manga itself, which, okay, I don't really have a problem with that at all, because maybe they want to cut this stuff for time, or maybe they want to put in the next episode, who knows. But they keep a lot of the main story focus from the first two chapters in this episode. So, you have Yo basically saying hi to Menta, though he denies knowing him later. Or he's a ghost. And there's a bit more detail here, and they kind of trimmed down this appearance from the actual manga itself, which, not really big of an issue. Just establishing the fact that it's ghosts here, And doesn't really change much anything. Not really, no. And if you're curious, do they cut any dialogue here? Was any point like development they cut here? Not really. No, it's pretty much intact from the action manga. This why I think yes, the scene is trimmed down a bit from the action manga, but it's perfectly fine. I have no problem with it. Well, from there, of course, there's the kids, and of course they do something a little bit later. So Menta, of course, sees Yo, and of course he denies who he is. Then he says to follow him. Now, this they do make a slight change here from the actual manga, where he follows Yo and he goes to a bridge. They actually show in the anime him actually was there for hours, like I'd say looks like about 4 or 5 hours, just standing at this bridge, just staring at the space, but basically clearing his mind. And then, of course, well, then he goes to then we see the actual graveyard. This scene is pretty much intact from the actual manga itself. They do cut one little bit out of here, but it's not really a big loss here. It's basically where they mentioned about the whole thing where he got a particular object, and it's not, from what I can tell, it's not something that's really noteworthy. Yes. So, we see him basically bust up a grave, which is the grave of the samurai. And Amaro. Yeah, he basically busts up his burial ground, which is in the manga too. And of course, Menta's there, and of course he gets beaten up off screen by Ro, which, yes, this is true. And then Yo basically dragged off. This is actually also a slight change, where they actually look like dirt swirling around where Menta is, because he's basically kicking and screaming, while Yo's dragging him off. So they're friends now, and of course, well, maybe later. Then we actually have a slight change here. He goes to visit the museum when they talk about the actual spirit, the samurai. Now, this actually happened in chapter 2, when he goes to visit the samurai, the swordsmith who makes Adamaru's sword. Here, the actual anime itself actually shows a meeting here, and then later on, basically, we have the battle with Ro. And they actually have a flashback from chapter 2, which kudos for including that here. Basically, to when him and his childhood friend, or with his feudal lord, who then later on wants to kill the swordsman because he was the finest blade possible. So, kill him before he makes any more blades. Which to me sounds very stupid. If you want to make a payroll, just hire more swordsmen. Have them basically make their blades or fine tune the blades or whatever. So he allows to get away. And of course the guy basically later, well, became a samurai legend. Excuse me, this whole scene, completely intact from the manga, not really much change here. Then, of course, after Yo defeats Rao, which they actually cut down a little bit of the dictionary explaining, because you see mental dictionary briefly, and then, of course, Yo defeats Ryu very easily. If you're curious about this guy dresses like he's from 1970, and he's got a big afro. And he carries around a wooden sword, aka a practice sword. Yep, that's what he carries on with him. He's known as Ryu the Wooden Sword. Now, in the manga, they've heard of him as Ryu's son. They've heard of him in the manga, they've heard of him as the anime. I don't remember, I think they've heard him just as Ryu in the actual original anime, because they don't use honorifics in dubs. The only dub still to date that actually did hear characters refer to each other with honorifics is actually one anime that I watched last year. Let me look it up here. It was that cat anime. It was, if I can find it here. Where are you? It's Non-Koi. Yeah, with that one in the English dub, they actually kept. Oh, by the way, the name of the episode is "The Boy Who Dances with Ghosts," which is also the name of the very first chapter of the manga. Which, cool! I love the fact they keep the actual chapter names. This actually has happened occasionally when it comes to this anime adapts chapter from the manga. They sometimes use the chapter names in the actual episode itself. Remember, Attack on Titan is notorious for doing this a lot in the series, and Naruto does use it too. I think Bleach does as well, though I haven't paid close attention to that. So after defeats Ro, he asks basically the samurai, become a partner. Well, basically become his ally per se. Of course, they changed to comrade, though I think in the original anime they said partner. He says no. He says, oh wait, you're waiting for the actual your childhood friend to show up. Well, I made the sword. He takes the spiritual manifestation of the sword because eventually he actually possessed him briefly. Kind of forced him into it. And of course he agrees to join him. And then the episode ends. Pulling from the last page, chapter 5, we have the anime. This anime's debut of Tao. You're probably thinking, Tao? Which Tao? Tao Ren. Yep. Tao Ren. Or in the English dub, he's referred to as Leo Lin Tao. Basically, it's Tao Ren. He makes his first appearance in this very episode. And from what I can tell, it's the same exact appearance that he had from the actual manga itself. They actually show his face here. In the manga, it's basically in shadow. But it's him. They actually show him here. And with his spirit guard standing right behind him. Where basically, they actually change the positioning where he actually is seen from a distance where Yo and Menta are. Compared to how they were in the manga. I think in chapter 2, from what I get to, they look like they cut about half the parse. Like the beginning portion of the chapter, but they'd have the good chunk of the chapter for the episode, which good job for them for doing that. But this episode overall was really, really good. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I thought the anime did a fantastic job with the series. It's just that for a lot of people, if they watch the original anime and then they watch this one, it doesn't look much difference. Basically, by looking at it on the screen, it looks visually the same, even though it's made by a different studio. Yeah, completely different studio. Xbox created the original series. This studio is named Bridge. Yep. But good job for the anime for doing that. Oh yeah, that's it for this particular review. Stay tuned for my next 2 reviews, which will be Common Corners, and also I'm going to do reviews for newest episodes of Shaman the Princess, Fire Force, obviously Fire Force Force, Shaman the Princess, and finally, Case Closed. Okay? Common Corners next. Okay? Just a video. Bye.